You're tuned into RX Radio. Movement prescribed. Brought to you by Prescript.com. A personalized approach to keeping you healthy and making your best even better. Your hosts, Dr. Jordan Shallow and Dr. Jordan Jinta.
Was there ever a time?
Oh, is there ever a time where meth, like Lundy says, is required?
Well, I mean, I was an Adderall guy.
Okay, so you're basically, that's
Oh,
a methyl
it's
compound.
methy, right? Like, I'm employed. I haven't sold any of my furniture for Adderall.
So what is the, because I know there's like, what, is it one molecule different between, I don't know anything about chemistry.
Man.
Dude, I don't know, yeah.
If anybody is the least chemist here, it's probably me.
I think that one molecule is the one that makes a difference in your skin falling off.
Okay.
Now, is that a mechanism of the delivery of the drug?
I don't think so, because Coke doesn't do it, though, right? If you snort meth, I believe you still have the same outcome.
Interesting.
With your teeth and stuff, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't looked that. I only take drugs to study and shit. That was for the most part up until like my late 20s.
Well, would you not use meth to study the streets?
Well, like I don't need a up close and personal with a gutter though.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah, I don't know. Of all the drugs portrayed, like there's some like portrayals of drugs that that parents put together that are actually super enticing.
Yeah.
They go, yeah, that sounds kind of fun. I do like donuts.
Yeah.
Or like Funyuns are really cool. If I ate a bunch of those, that'd be okay.
Absolutely.
But like meth is the least, like to me, it has the worst sales pitch. Coke, I can kind of understand. Like I've never done it, but like I've seen people on it. They seem to have a great time.
I know. I've seen many people on Coke, and I know those people on the other side of when you see them on Coke, and it's not a good time.
Right. But I'm saying the pure act of like, if I'm putting together some parent, teacher, audio visual presentation, and I got to put all the drugs out and like, this is what you look like when you're on the drug. The meth zombie is the one that I'm like, man, I'm good. The coked out guy at the bar that's like doing the number thing and ripping the snuff box. You're like, yeah, he's got a rollie. Like he's doing all right.
Yeah, I think for me, I always look at the delivery systems of drugs and go, at some point, like we spoke about before, that guy doesn't have the thing you're looking for, but he's got something that the delivery is the same, and then it gets a slippery. So I don't have Coke, but I have this meth, and you can crush it up and you can snort it up your nose. It's like, well, I can crush the meth up and snort it like I did the Coke, and then I can't crush the meth up anymore, so I smoke the meth. And it's like, I can't smoke the meth, so then I do, what's the next thing? You know what I mean?
Freebasing.
Then
you're just going to then you're mainlining.
Yeah, and then you just go IV.
But would you go? So when you get IV though, then you go heroin or you go steroids. There's a big difference there, but they're both a similar mechanism of delivery, right? So
right. But
if you're looking at outcome, they're very different.
Yeah, but as different as like I think running meth up your nose and running Coke up your nose is to like your quality of life long term. Like subdividing your drug intake by method of delivery is probably a terrible way to do it.
I agree. It's just
I just feel it's a slippery slope. But they did do studies on people who had done heroin on a regular basis for 10 years and people who had smoked on a regular basis for 10 years. When both quit, the people who had done heroin had a better quality of life than those who had smoked.
Because they also probably had superpowers. Because here's the thing. You're doing 10 years of heroin.
And you're alive?
And you're
still going.
Right.
Yeah.
This is some like Deadpool shit. Like if you put your body through 10 years of age, like, and you're coming out the other side to even be studied, you're a case that you're a one of one. Like I've seen people like in west side of Windsor with like a fridge on their back.
Yeah.
It's like the contents and the fridge are heavier than the
person carrying it.
And he's got the fingertips. He's hanging on like Alex Honnold to the fridge. It's like, how the fuck is this guy doing it? So that's the one for me. Like once you're at heroin level. Because kind of back to the point. Like fentanyl. Like, dude, I mean, you smoke a joint, you smoke cigarettes, whatever. You smoke up one of those patches. You've had your last turkey sandwich. Like, you're fucking roasted.
I've had fentanyl once.
Have you?
I've like in the hospital.
Prescribed.
Yeah. I blacked out. Like I was looking for my night guard. I was in the hospital getting diagnosed with my heart failure, I guess. But I woke up in my bed. My nurse was like, "Oh, you found your night guard." I'm like, I don't know.
What was the? They just put it in an IV, like they just
yeah.
Yeah.
I had a test, and they put me half ounce, whatever.
What else have you had in there?
In the drugs?
Well, like, I mean, I've had Dilaudid. I had Dilaudid in the hospital.
Dilaudid for sure.
And that's like, I had it when I was in the 9th grade, and like I didn't really know much about drugs in general in the 9th grade, but I'm like, whatever that is, that's so good it'll ruin your life.
Dilaudid's pretty dangerous.
I didn't.
too.
Yeah.
So interesting thing about Dilaudid, when I was in the back of an ambulance convulsing, 2 shots of Dilaudid, it didn't do anything.
Whoa.
Nothing. It was intense.
So what are the drugs that they've given you that have done something?
Anesthetic, I guess. Yeah,
Okay.
General anesthetic for sure.
Oh, well, yeah.
I mean, fentanyl wasn't. Yeah, that definitely did something.
Morphine?
I haven't had morphine in years, so I don't know. I don't have an adult memory of morphine.
Okay. Yeah, because I would imagine like those things probably hit. Those things hit pretty. One drug I never get is ketamine. That was one drug I never get. Remember Tim Wu? Yeah. Dude, we went to high school with like a study, like a research study at Carleton when he was going to university up in Ottawa, and it was like, we'll pay you $200. And he's like, cool. I hear the kids are doing it, and that's such a Tim way to do the drug. Is like under medical supervision, and he had like a hyper reaction to it. He's in the hospital for like 4 days.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. That's because it's like a tranquilizer.
It's
right?
a horse tranquilizer.
Oh, yeah.
But it's a dissociative. They use it in depression therapy.
Okay.
They give people like microdoses of ketamine because it's dissociative. It can help with depression.
Interesting. Because there's ketamine, psilocybin, and Molly. I've heard they do a Molly with depression
Yeah,
studies.
I've heard that too. PTSD.
Well, that was popular like in France in the 60s. I don't want to be put on record as saying this, but I believe it was like doses of MDMA even in the 60s that were being used in therapeutics for
I got it.
psychoactive problems.
The reason I think that story is 100% accurate is because did you ever read the French studies that they used to give tren to kids?
Yeah.
Wow. Because like everyone thought they did all the research on like doing like meta-analysis and doing like this empirical sweep of like all the like performance enhancing drug, but people forget that there's research done not in English, right? So Poliquin, being French, went through like old French medical journals and found like now they do like they'll do like growth hormone with kids, so, like underdeveloped kids.
Yeah, for sure.
But back in the day, they were given these little angry French kids. They're blasting them full of tren. It's like, maybe you're better off with the meth in that case. Yeah, that'd be an aggressive one. The French are already kind of like seen as angry people. You imagine like night sweats and just raging out on people.
I think it's interesting, like the stem of this conversation is like the necessity of a drug, right? And like if used properly or supervised, like does it have a net positive? I think it's a popular internet term these days, net positive.
Well, I think it's just, it just deals at reward centers, right? Dopamine, serotonin reward centers. And then I don't want to go too, like, not that I want to, I just can't go much deeper than that. But it's like, coked, right, if I got this correctly, is like a thermoregulated like SSRI kind of, where it like blocks the reuptake of serotonin. So it just stays at like the synaptic cleft. So it just kind of stays stimulating that thing. And that's when you start chasing it. So it just blocks it from going out. So it's, I don't know, it's so good that it will kill you because that's what you chase. Like the rat studies.
Yeah.
You see the rat studies where it's like Coke water or food. That rat is
Definitely
going
that
out.
one.
Yeah. Whatever this thing is, I'm taking this into the grave. But yeah, I mean, you can't fight it, right? Like, and that's the thing with addiction. Once you know people who are like completely fucking normal, because I grew up in like the afternoon specials they show you.
Yeah.
Is like they're just different people.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, that'll never happen to me. But when you have a friend who's like gone through it, you're like, oh yeah, this dude had like a mortgage and like a social insurance number like yesterday, and now he's got 4 teeth. And it's like, what the fuck happened there? It's like, he like tore his whatever, and they gave him some perks, and then it was like perks, oxys, and then see you later. Yeah, crazy.
I think it's just, it goes back to that idea, like it's interesting to say like they're different people, and I think we've touched on this before, but it's that idea that like when anything happens, you are literally a different person than you were before the experience, right? And
Always.
I think that's like assumingly the same thing with you, and like these ideas of like chasing these things. It's like these people get stuck. Like addiction's weird because I don't think anyone's ever not an addict. You're just changed the addiction that you have, which is my big apprehension behind like the use of like therapy and the gym. I really don't like when people enter those two words in the same conversation because it's like, whoa. Don't take someone who's inherently avoiding the negative consequences of something that exists outside the gym, bringing them into a quantitative state, which is the gym. Like there's nothing in a gym that doesn't have a number on it. And it's like those people that chase that same thing out of it are just going to come to the gym and chase that same thing in the gym. And what are the negative consequences of that?
So it's not so much therapy. It's just like, all right, this is a less destructive means in which to scratch that itch.
I don't even know if it's less destructive, in my opinion. Like, I think it's equally destructive. Like, I very much advocate do not enter the gym if there's something that you have undiscovered or unsolved.
Oh, there'd be 3
never
people
start.
at the gym.
Right? Like how, I don't know, when I was like, 16, you start lifting weights, but what drives most people to start lifting weights? Like from my perspective, I guess I would say it's typically a control thing. There's always something in your life not going the way you want it to, or that you can't change. And you find, or for me anyway, it's like, this is all me. I can lift the weights. I can do the thing. And if I don't, then the outcome's on me. So I think problems over here, I go to the gym. And here we go. You know, here we are 17 years later.
I think that's a very mature way to look at it. Go like, this is on me. Like, I can progress this. I can control this. And I think that's okay. But I think there's a lot of people with like unsolved other issues, depression or self-image issues or accomplishment issues or imposter syndromes. They enter the gym and it's like you took the quantitative thing you couldn't achieve outside the gym. You entered this new place that people say is therapeutic. It made you feel good for the first 3 months when everything goes up like it does for everybody. Right. But then when it stops, then we see these complexes, that these god complexes of people on the internet even, right? And they just start to crumble beneath them.
But I think, dude, you start the internet, or you start lifting weights long before you realize like really what your problems, long before you even have problems.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the thing.
For some people, I think
arguably though,
I think we all entered the gym. Like, I entered later than you guys. I didn't fucking work out, but it's like you enter before you have those. But I think there's a lot of people entering in adulthood
now,
or post-adolescence that are entering the gym because of problems, because it's being advertised to them as a place to go minus going to therapy.
Yeah.
It's not like, hey man, like talk to a therapist and go to the gym. Both things are great. There's good things that happen at the gym. It's like, hey man, iron therapy. Like meet me at the bar, talk about weightlifting all the time. And it's like
romanticized almost.
And then what happened for the last 13 months when the gym's closed?
Well, I think even when I was a kid, I saw it as like an identity, right? Like, I wanted to be the big guy, right? Because the way, and it was purely based off of my perception of the big guys. Trav Sartori, Lundy went to high school with this dude, and then he was the big guy. And it was the Iron Man thing. Like, is it better to be feared or respected? It's like, why can't you be both? And I was like, brilliant. Fuck yeah. What's that? D-ball? Let's go. So it's like, and I think it's still, for me, it was still that for a super long, like it was a long time. It was like an identity thing.
Yeah.
But I think you can have, like, there can be a community built around it that can be therapeutic. But the act of like going in, like Frank, like, you know, all the old animal, like the journey stuff of like how many kids romanticize the idea of like not paying rent to buy protein powder or whatever the fuck that was, right? So it's, I think it can be detrimental, but is name something that isn't.
Oh no, I'm not saying that. I think it's, but I don't think it's identified or addressed in the same way that it has detriment.
Oh sure,
or absolutely. That it's like everything's a part of a balanced breakfast, right? It's like just deadlifting's not going to solve your fucking PTSD.
Right.
Going to somebody and talking about your PTSD and now investing yourself in something that makes you a better person and allows you something to progress if nothing else progresses is great. It's excellent to work out. I love people that do, but I think it's like this is the thing that I do now, and then people who maybe don't have something outside of it. Like we talked about, this is very much a means to an end always for me. Like there's so many more things I find cool that it's like the gym can come and go and I train every day, but it doesn't harness me in this terms of like I identify with the gym.
Sure.
Right.
Like I don't wear gym clothes outside of the gym ever. I don't talk about the gym. I don't carry a fucking mammoth mug around. Like I don't eat out of a Tupperware.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't bring a scale to the restaurant. It's like I don't do those things. I'm a normal human being who loves the gym and talks about it.
Right.
But it doesn't become an identifier where when it's removed, it's a loss of identity.
I would argue, not argue, but I wonder, you started lifting weights later on. Like you and I both started in high school, early high school, right? Yeah. So at that time, or like for me anyway, like I think a lot of my life is framed around, while I'm healthy enough to do something, I want to do it, right? And at that time, I had a lot going on, and the gym was very much like, I can do this. I'm able to do this right now. My body will take it, even though I'm being told I probably shouldn't start.
Yeah,
I believe it will work, and I just fucking started doing it. And it's because of that now, I believe that's why I'm still here, right?
100%.
I've changed my body to the point where it's just... my vascular system, right?
Well, because you got diagnosed at what age? Like what? Like 2 days, 3 days old?
Yeah, 17 months. Yeah,
17 months. At what? So when did you start training?
15. Yep.
What was your identity at 15?
I just started playing guitar. So I started playing guitar at 14. Otherwise, I was a heavy kid. I was 210 in grade 9.
Did you get identified with your health issues?
Not really, no, because I didn't tell anyone. Like, and that's one interesting thing for me, I think, more so now than ever, but I've had always like an almost invisible health problem, right? Because with a shirt on and everything, like people don't know what's up. And I always wanted that way. Because like when I was a kid, my knuckles were bright orange. And like I used to get teased all the time, like, oh, you're playing with toads and whatever. And like even from adults.
That's such a what a tease-water diss. Legit, dude. What a tease-water insult. Playing with toads over there.
I swear to God. I remember my dad like looking at another grown man and saying, shut your fucking mouth. Because he's a skill. Tell your son you can't play with toads. Like, look at his fucking hands. And I'm this like 6-7-year-old kid. Like, this is not from playing with toads, man. Yeah. You know? But like Santa Claus. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But all of that to say, like, it's pretty much invisible disease.
Right.
And I kept it that way. And that's why it's extra weird for me now to kind of reverse that, to be like, all right, this can be beneficial for myself. It's therapeutic, but also like other people find it beneficial too. So
did you identify with your health issues?
I don't know. I would say I never did.
Yeah.
I didn't want to get stuck there, you know?
But that's something that's like, and we talked about this the other day, like, and hey, however, you know, any port in the storm, right? Like, shout out Good Will Hunting. And it's like, however you got to get through it. And fuck
Absolutely.
If I can, ever be in a position to judge that.
Oh.
But at a certain point, like the crutch that holds people up as they're going through it, like, you know, rally and cry. And we all know people have had like cancer and beat it and all that. Mm-hmm. But that badge of honor gets heavy. Right. And it's something that I see with people that have like terminal or chronic health issues. It's like it can like be a shield and protect you from it while you're going through it. But that starts to weigh on you because you just identify as that person.
I wonder too if that's more a common thing in people who don't have things from such a young age. I see that in adults, autoimmune diseases and stuff like that. They usually come on, you know, in the 20s or later. And I find psychologically there's this life before and life after.
Yeah.
And then it's like, because it's as we always do, what seems like, well, when I get back to my normal life, I'll feel better. And when I'm able to do this thing that I can't now currently do based off my health situation, I will feel better and be better. But the problem is, a lot of the time that's not the case, right? A lot of those things we'll never do again. And then if that's what we're waiting to do before we actually feel better, we just never feel better. Right. So I think that seems to be a bottleneck in a lot of people's like vision, where it's like, I will get better and I'll get back to how I used to be, instead of there will be a new version of me. And what can this new version of me do? And like, I don't have answers to that. But instead of trying to do this whole thing, like if you're trying to squat 600 pounds and you got a shit heart, you're going to be let down for 20 years. Right. But like, all right, well, how much can I squat now is a better question. Right. Not like 20-year-old me did this. Nobody gives a fuck. You know, you're not 20-year-old you.
It's like the managing expectations thing.
And but that's where that all comes from for me. It's like, all right, well, what can I do now to solve later problems? And it's, I don't know, I guess it can cause a lot of stress in the meantime too, but depends on how it sits, right? If you're able to take that on, I think that's why I do.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, I think you kind of hit it on the head in one way as well. Like, you've had what you've had for so long and you've managed expectations for so long. Like, you already entered the gym with this mature understanding of managing expectations and not feeling the same every day and having this ebb and flow in performance. And I've just seen this in the, 8-10 years I've been in this industry. It's like, I see people I knew who started training for something specifically when I did 10 years ago. And I just see, like, I see people change and we see people change, where you're just staring at it and it's like, this isn't good. This has nothing to do with what we did. And I think that's a part that affects me in a way personally, is like when I look at these people, I do get so frustrated behind this is therapy, like this is that, where it's just like, no, it's not. Like, you continuing to drive competitive nature here is detrimental to the thing that you're avoiding dealing with outside of here. And like, you can see it. It's like, this is the shortcoming to you getting better.
Yeah. I think a lot of people will just use it as like a crutch, and then they'll just lean on that forever. Like anything in someone who's gone to a decent amount of therapy, it's like once you've gone through therapy, you'll never use the term "this is therapy" again.
No,
unless it's you sitting on a fucking chaise lounge, bawling your eyes out, holding onto like a teddy bear or some shit.
Yeah, I think it's just such a different experience, right? And I think part of it is avoidance in a lot of ways. Like, I didn't go to therapy forever. I started going to therapy, but it was like, it didn't come. I don't think I ever avoided it going to the gym, but I think a lot of times at the gym, it's like I would go in and be like, I don't feel so good today, but I'm going to do this, or this is going to make me feel better.
Yeah.
And it's like sometimes like you go in the gym and you PR and you be like, fuck yeah, like the day is better. There's also days where you go and it doesn't work and you're like, I'm a shell of a man.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's just like, that's the thing that doesn't happen when you go to therapy.
However, I would argue like that's just part of life. Like if you aren't able to sit there and feel like a shell of a man at times, then I think you're not doing very well, right? Like that being comfortable with being uncomfortable, or at least acknowledging the fact that, being uncomfortable is part of life. Like,
and I think we were talking about this the other day. Like it's all about the stories people tell themselves.
Oh yeah.
100%.
Right. Like, and I by no means try and like romanticize or like inflate the stories that I tell myself or others. And because it's so hard to find a level playing field of experience, and maybe it's altogether impossible, but like we can sit here and be like, well, based off of these experiences, the severity, how close you are to dying in these situations, like actually close you are to dying. It's like, the I've been sober 10 years when you're 25 post is like, what kind of story are you telling us here, man?
Yeah.
Like that sounds like it, and if it means a lot to you, that's fine. But it's like, I think people lack such an overall perspective of like, they might even be, and it's usually honestly in what I see, it's the people who call the gym therapy that are like, maybe you don't have real problems. Because if this is therapeutic for you, it's like, you don't know what therapy is, man. Like this is, you go catch a bicep pump and you fucking flexing on the selfie gram. It's like, if that makes you feel better, you don't have an issue.
I would say like the tools of calibration just aren't the same, right? And I would call them tools in the sense that the life experiences are the tools of which you can choose to grow, we'll say, for lack of a better word, or not, right? And that's, a lot of people don't want to do that, right? It's uncomfortable. It prolongs the state of feeling unwell, right? Because even though, like in my physical stuff, like, all right, you get surgery, you're fucked up, whatever, you get better. And then you've got the mental stuff. And do you want to deal with that, yes or no, right? So we could go to the gym, pretend it didn't happen. Great, I can get a sick arm pump today. Fuck it. Or I can think, all right, well, that last 6 months, that was pretty heavy. Now what am I going to do with that, right? Like, do I want to process that? Yes. That then is also uncomfortable. And then that, however long that takes, right? And that's, could be forever.
Yeah, I think it's just, I think in one way it's managing expectations, and like you said, Shallow, it's this idea of like the stories people tell themselves, and I think it goes even to how people program for themselves sometimes too, right? It's like they're just constantly choosing these variations. That's avoidance of probably the thing that needs to get fixed, right? It's like, probably don't need a high pin squat to fix the fact that the last third of your squat isn't strong and you fail every time. Probably you're squatting too heavy, your core is shit, and it's like you should do something that fixes that. And I think the same thing is like people approach the gym or diet or nutrition or being fitness minded as this catch-all for things, or reading a fucking book as a catch-all. It's like, man, I read a lot of philosophy and psychology books for a long time, and they didn't answer any of my problems. And I remember, like, in a very honest and earnest way, it's like I had a conversation like a year ago where someone was talking to me about therapy, and I was like, I don't fucking need that. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, dude, I've read so many books. I know what's wrong with me. I can tell you. I read it. I know what I would have to do. I choose not to do it.
Right.
And it's like, I don't know what the fuck's wrong with me. What the fuck am I? It's so true, though, right? And it's just like, but that was just me being like, I've read the books. I know. Yeah. I know.
Well, and how often we see that in training, right?
It's exactly.
It's like how many fucking nerds are sitting there working on their iliac lat fibers between like 12 inches of fat. It's like, yeah, you can read all the books you want, man, but that's not where this game gets played.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the hard part with that is a lot of people can just play the game. And I hate to bring social media in, but I don't think you can have a conversation about the current state of fitness and mental health without bringing social media into it. How many people I know that are on their daily meditation, some app is telling them what to tell the rest of the world, right? It's just like, and then they're the first person to tee off. And then when they're at their worst and they have to be at their best, they're at their absolute worst.
It's like, I think social media is just the white picket fence syndrome of the 50s, right? It's this idea. It's like everybody's got a white picket fence. They've got a station wagon. They might have a boat in the driveway. It's the Windsor, right? Everybody's got the green lawn, the white picket fence, a boat, station wagon. You go inside and they're just beating their wife.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like they come out on weekends, take the kid to hockey, 2 kids, dog, husband and wife, come back home, beat your wife. And it's the same thing with social media, right? It's this white picket fence. It's like, what do I need to appease the idea of curb appeal? So when I walk out into the suburb that is the internet, it's like I have all the boxes checked, and then no one looks further.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you got a link in your bio, you got a cool picture at the gym, wearing some nice clothes. You got a couple videos that you've done. Excellent. You post a book. Bell, let's talk. Move on. Yeah. Don't take any closer look at this guy.
But I would say probably even to our talk this morning that probably the person they don't want to look any further is themselves.
Oh, 100%.
Right? So it's great to have, the Joneses looking in my window and see me being a nice guy, giving the thumbs up. But in reality, when I look in the mirror, I think I'm a fucking piece of shit.
But then you don't have to look in the mirror anymore. You can just
That's what I'm saying.
Just look at your social media
feed.
I'm going to get rid of the mirror, and then I feel good, right? It's like, great.
Yeah. Well, it comes down to like delayed gratification too, right? Like I think so much of what you said of just like being able to sit with it, like it could be uncomfortable your entire life.
Dude,
like there are people that are fractured and they'll never get back. Like there is no new normal. But it's like if you could, that fracture is just a divergence down a new path, and you can pave that path with more realistic expectations of what you can actually overcome. Like
for sure.
There's some people that like life has just one chance out. Every step they take is just another life rake sideshow bobbing them in the fucking face. And you talk to some people and you're like, holy shit, how did I make it to 30 past this minefield of crap? And it always just seems, and I don't know if this is just my experience, but it seems like it's just a concentrate. Like there's people out there that and it's usually the happiest people you've ever met in your entire life, that literally every single time they take a step, something goes wrong. And and it's always like the one guy's, like my girlfriend, or I got a divorce. It's like, yeah, but what has happened in the last like 25 years of your life? Yeah. Like literally nothing, right? Like, oh, my parents divorced when I was 10. It's like, yeah, but you're 30. Like, get over it, right? But again, it's like at some point, dude, life's undefeated.
Yeah, life always wins.
Always wins.
Always.
That mirror is coming whether you like it or not. Like that's going back up in front of you, and you're gonna have to sit with it. I think what, to your point about the gym being like a vice that allows people to escape from it, is the gym allows people to get that instant gratification, right? And it's like that might prolong the actual conversation they have to have, like putting the real sort of like metaphysical mirror up and being like, you got some shit to take care of here, man. Like, like how many people we know that just have crazy rigs on them, but are completely busted.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think it's like, and I don't want to be every podcast we fucking get on, just bash social media because it's just such an easy target, right? And I think, but I honestly, like I started working out before Instagram was a thing. We all did. Like there's no Instagram. No. But all it was, like when you got to the gym, I realized this looking back on it now. It's like when I got to the gym, it was like I was logging into Instagram when you looked around the gym. There was like the same people there every day, talking to their same group of people, doing the same 2 workouts, never bulking, never cutting, running a little VAR, pulling their shirt up in the mirror. It was like the same, like nobody had to know they couldn't bench 3 plates. Right. You know what I mean? They could kind of look good. No one needed to know they couldn't bench anything. They got to go home. And then you'd see them leave. And like, dude, I don't know how many times you watch people and they leave the change room. It's like they come in, they got fucking every new piece of gear on. They look like The Rock. They're training. They leave and they like fix fucking refrigerators for a living. Yeah. And it's like, that's the same as Instagram. That's the Instagram guy.
Yeah.
He wheels in. He's got like a C-class Mercedes. He's got this $30,000 Mercedes-Benz, but at least his keys. The key fob says Benz on it. Throws it down by the bench. Goes out in the parking lot. Gets in this piece of shit. Doesn't even have a fucking GPS in it.
It's cheers.
It is.
It's people like to go somewhere where everyone knows their name.
And I think that was my big aversion at the beginning. My aversion now when people talk to me. I'm like, dude, I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit about anything about the gym. It's like I turn the internet off. I stop caring. I leave the gym. I stop caring about it.
All right. So to take this a little bit different direction, in the terms of helping people versus being helped, like I would say it's probably all of us enjoy helping other people, right? I would also say that we all likely have an aversion to being helped in some degree. Yeah. Why do you think that is? For yourself. I don't mean in general terms in society. This is a deeper question.
We don't even need to start with shallow. For me, it's just like, for me, I don't mind being helped. Like I was an apprentice in a trade. My whole job was having someone else fucking tell me how to. Sure. Every day I went to work, I worked with a different journeyman. And I think this is a fucking life lesson for people on the internet. Every day I went to work, I worked with a different journeyman who told me to swing my hammer and load my tool pouch and hold the nail a different way.
Different ways, yeah.
And for 24 hours, I had to do it however that fucking old Jimmy P, the Greek guy, said to do it. You want me to fucking stick the nail in my foreskin, hit it with the claw side of my hammer, whatever, dude, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
But it's like the next day when he wasn't there, I could go back to swinging my hammer however the fuck I wanted to. But when Jimmy was there, I did it his way. And that's the thing on the internet. Somebody wants to tell you how to do something? Awesome. Thanks, man. I'll take your advice. Just move on. It's not a debate about the best way. There was never a best way because every day I showed up to work for 12 hours a day. And at the end of the day, something was built. At the beginning of the next day, nothing was built. And it was just this repeated process day after day. And I don't think it's an aversion for me to get help. But I think from living in the trades, I need to know the other person knows better than me. I don't have an aversion to be helped, but I'm like, what do you know? How long have you done this?
Right.
It's like, show me your scars. Show me your busted fingernail. You still have a thumbnail? Don't fucking show me how to swing a hammer. Fuck you.
Yeah.
What do you know?
I don't know. That's a tough one, man. Like, I mean, because I'm definitely more on the side of like, because I mean, for me, and we've talked about this, like services, that's the whole game.
Absolutely.
So I feel like me seeking help is like a potential time that I could be helping someone else. Right. Because when I have to help myself, it's when I need to do shit for me, it's like, well, I'll just get up before everyone else.
But is that an aversion to vulnerability then to others then? Or like, because self-sufficiency is oftentimes, I would feel like you don't want to be comfortable.
I'm not self-sufficient. I want everyone on the internet to know. Like I have a fucking meal prep service now because I can't be bothered.
No, but hold on.
There's
a difference between self-sufficient and bougie as fuck.
No, it's just like
you also have a guy who doesn't like. You have a guy who picks out your clothes.
That's also not actual help, right? You're paying for a service.
Yeah.
Right.
That's different than like, look, man, I'm kind of fucking broken right now. I need some help.
Yeah,
Right.
I guess my biggest thing is I'm always concerned about dependency. Right? Like that's when you die.
But it's short-term dependency. Like, I guess where I'm coming from is like, I've had to use a walker. I've had to learn to breathe again. All these things, right? So like, like a help is nice. Like, you know what? I'm having trouble actually standing right now. So maybe if you could make me some eggs, that would actually be super good. But it's very hard for me to ask you, look, like, you know what? Could you make my eggs so I don't like, fuck myself up trying to make them myself?
You know why I don't ask for help?
Why is that?
Because there's times where you still make your fucking eggs. So why the fuck would I ask for help?
I guess, but that's not a fair bar to, it's not realistic for you. Your life is not my life. So why would you measure against each other? It's like,
so I mean, you don't know how much you can shoulder until you try and shoulder it.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah. You don't know how deep it is until you're over your head, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. It's like I'm still here.
Yeah.
Like the only way to know where the bottom is to like, all right, let's race.
Yeah.
So I think for me is like I haven't been able to reach a point where I, for whatever reason, couldn't take it on myself, and that's not entirely true. Like I lean on this fucking jackass every day of my life. Like,
there's no self-made man.
Right? No.
I
think that's the biggest.
Right.
Then there's people who inherit shit ton of money from their parents and are absolute douchebags about it. But like, I think we all like it's not a like an individual sport by any stretch of the imagination. But it's just a perspective thing. I think it's just like I have to tell myself that my problems aren't my problems. That when I think I have problems, this is just me. This is the story I'm telling myself, right? Because like we talked about the other day, where it's when you see people telling the sob story and you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
What do you mean you were sober a decade?
Yeah.
You were 15. What did you like break into your parents' medicine cabinet and pull a Xanny? Like that's not an issue. Like talk to the fucking meth head carrying the fridge like 2 city blocks. That's an issue.
For sure.
Right? So for me, I'm so maybe hypersensitive, hyper aware of when I kind of smell bullshit.
Yeah.
When it comes to other people and the stories they tell themselves and through Instagram, the stories they tell the world, and just like the rallying cry and the pity party and the pats on the back that they're getting. It's just like, look, this social jerk off thing, like I don't ever want to be a part of it. Mm-hmm. So if I can fucking do everything myself as much as I can, like, then I'll do that. So, because I'm so averse to like, when I see that, I'm like, how do you, the person telling this story, how do you not see how preposterous this is?
Right.
Like, how do you not see like you didn't really have a problem, man? Like you were just an angsty kid.
Yeah.
I knew 10 kids in my fucking neighborhood that aren't celebrating 10 years sober, and they were like on crazy drugs. When my parents picked the grade school I went to because it had the least amount of teen pregnancies, like, and you're gonna sit here like in your suburban fucking California house telling me that you were like 10 years sober. So when I see that, I'm like, oh, it's so cringe to me that I'm like, oh man, am I ever that dissonant? Like, am I ever that dissonant that I'm telling a story that's so far from like an overarching truth and reality, that's grounded in reality? Because I feel like those people aren't grounded in reality. Right. They're like, oh, like, woe is me. It's like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? You're just a kid. Like, I don't know. Then that's my aversion to getting.
Their tools for calibration are different, though. Like we said before, like,
are there universal tools for calibration?
I don't think so. No.
What about death?
Well, yeah, I guess.
And this is why I'm telling, like, this is with you with the eggs. It's like, I'll never fucking, hey, Killian, make my eggs. Because it's like, how many times have you thought you were going to die?
More, a couple, yeah, I guess. But
like, dude, that's a weird, you can't, no, hold on, stop. Because you can't just be like, yeah, a couple and not, like, how many times? One hand, two hands? You need mine?
No. And I think the difference there is that I don't actually think that I'm going to die most of the time.
Should you?
Well, yeah, a couple times.
Okay.
Only one time in my life I know, like, I thought I was fucked for sure, and it was absolutely a weird just experience overall. Like I was in the ambulance, they gave me the Dilaudid, nothing was happening, and I was convulsing like for an hour really, and the attendant in the ambulance, I looked at her, I'm like, I need you to get a pen because I want you to take a note from my mom, because
that's crazy.
I can't do, like, my body isn't going to be able to do this. And she's like, no, you're fine. Everything's fine. I'm like, I can hear the driver. The hospital said, this is a bad scene. Like, I know what's going on. I need you to write a note from my mom. Yeah. And she's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And I'm like, all right, well, I got to get to the hospital then. And like, but I'm like, this could be the time. And up until that point, I'd never, like, I'm always, I'll get this. I'll be all right.
Now, after, like, that to me is a universal tool for calibrate, but not a universal tool for you.
Right.
But literally a universal in the sense of the word, like, tool for calibration. Like, the rest of my day will be different. The rest of my tomorrow will be different. I at no point said, hey, man, could you pen a letter to my mom? Because I won't be able to talk to her again. But then that's what I think. It's like this, pain is how you perceive it and all that. But I think, like, that is the great equalizer, right? It is undefeated. So I think, to me, when I see people tell themselves these stories, and I'm sure I'm as guilty of it as anyone, it's like
me too. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not an exception to any of these rules.
But at least, I mean, you've been closer. None of us are dead.
Yeah.
So none of us, like, let's throw that out there. Yeah. None of us have died.
Game on.
So, right. And that's kind of the whole go. But I think, I don't know. I struggle with being empathetic to people who, when I put their story up against, the tool, the universal tool of calibration, I go, you don't have a problem.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard for me to sit there and be like, oh, like, just give these fucking social pats on the back. Like, I'm going to like this comment. Like, I'm going to like this post. Like, no, fuck, dude, what could you have done to help someone in the time that you were fucking patting yourself on the back?
Sure.
For getting over a thing that wasn't a thing.
So question then, a different one. Do you guys find it difficult in the people that you meet to relate to them or feel like they can relate to you and your experiences?
I don't attempt to ever relate to anyone or have them relate to me. I'll just be honest.
Okay.
I've never my whole life. Like, I have a very hard time with empathy. In fact, I remember this in grade 7. I don't remember what class it was, but they taught us what empathy meant.
Yep.
Because when I was in grade 7, they were like, we don't use the word sympathy anymore.
Right.
You don't have sympathy for someone because that means you feel bad for them. You have empathy, which means you understand how they felt. I put my hand up and I was like, I don't really understand what that means. And they're like, empathy, like, you understand how they feel. And I was like, don't get it.
People don't understand how you feel. Anyway.
And people tell me how they feel, and I'm always like, I couldn't tell you that I know how you feel.
I think if using that as a tool of calibration, if I have been in a relative point in how I interpret their story next to my use of that tool of calibration, then I can be empathetic.
Yep.
Right. So that's kind of how I look at it, where it's like, okay, if someone is so far beneath any sort of, you're not going to meet your maker because you had a Xanax when you were 15 and they're trying to be some woe with me. It's like, I don't know how you feel, because I'm calibrating at a wavelength up here where it's like stuff got a little bit more real a few times in my life where And I hold, and it's a weird, it's not a ranking order. Like, it's not a judgment, and nor should it be a badge of honor, because I think a lot of people can carry that like a weight. Because I know people who have taken it right to death's door, and then the next thing you know, they live a totally new life after, and their perspective is better and all that. But I know people that make it there, and they fucking take the door with them. And they're just carrying it around like it's a Harvard diploma. Like 5 seconds of talking to someone, like, did you know I was almost dead? Oh, let me tell you about this. It's like, now that's your identity. But I can empathize within my realm of experience relative to the universal tool of calibration. That's how I would look at it. I'm not a complete sociopath like this fucking guy.
I don't want to know anything about anyone, and I don't care to tell them anything about me.
Right.
But that's not entirely true.
It's pretty true.
But like you have a very small circle. You have the smallest circle I've ever met when it comes to people like that.
Yeah.
Like outside, like I know a thing or two about you, but I definitely, you're not like, you'd go to a party, like if someone, you wouldn't reciprocate in a conversation.
Not at all.
Like this guy at a party, like, so I'm an accountant, and I talk to Killian, he'd be like, that's great.
Yeah,
he does not, you know what he is? He's like Johnny Tight Lips. Like, man, maybe I saw something, maybe I didn't. I don't know what to do you.
Man, I've been in so many conversations, and it's so true, right? And I always think about like, just like going on dates with people. They ask you a bunch of questions.
Yeah.
And I'll answer them. That's fine. Cool. I'll answer. And then they're like, do you have any questions for me? I'm like, no. And
it's like on the stand. He's always on the stand.
And they're like, you don't want to know my favorite food? I'm like, why? Because we go to eat. I'm going to ask what you want to eat. You're going to tell me. And it's probably never going to be the favorite food that you tell me right now.
Right. Yeah.
What's your favorite color? Doesn't matter. I'm not buying any clothes. What's your favorite movie? You already seen it. We're not going to watch it. I've seen every movie. We're not going to watch some fucking movie you've seen. You think I haven't seen before?
Sincere question. How did dating go then?
I don't know.
To the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Succinct, I think, would be a word.
Efficient, sure.
But I don't need to know. And I always tell people that. I don't need to know anything I don't need to know.
Yeah,
sure.
But I'm also like, don't tell me anything. Don't tell me anything that I don't need to know. And they're like, well, how are you going to get to know me? I'm like, I am going to get to know you in the moment in time, like Moffat said.
Yeah.
We're all in a moment in time. I'm going to know you as you are now.
Yeah.
Who you were 10 years ago doesn't matter, because that's not you right now.
That's right.
And I'm just sincerely not interested.
And you are not also a collection of your favorite food, movie, and color.
No.
Or you shouldn't be. And if you are, then I definitely don't want to get to know you.
Correct.
Right? Like, who are you? Bridget Jones's Diary, purple, and steak? Like, that's not an identity. That's just things you like.
And I don't want to hear the same three things again. I don't like when I ask people questions and they give me three answers that I know they're going to give me.
Yeah.
If you tell me your favorite movie is Pulp Fiction, I want to put a bullet in your head. Because it's not. Because it shouldn't be. Because it means you haven't seen anything.
Yeah.
It means when you're 14, someone's like, you know what a good movie is, Pulp Fiction. You watch it, you're like, you drink a $5 milkshake. It's like, this is your understanding of cinema? Then fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Please don't talk to me anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's your favorite hardcore band. And I like Hatebreed. It's like, honestly, kill yourself.
Sweet.
Yeah, I mean, it saves time. That's for sure. Like, I don't like standing on ceremony.
No.
Like, small talk to me is death. Like, that whole ring. And it's hard because it's harder because 90% of communication is nonverbal. So if you're meeting someone, I don't bother asking people how they met anymore. I made this, one of our buddies' dads met, we'll name drop off air, met like his second girlfriend on the internet. Back when it was like kind of taboo, like pre-Tinder days. And I was like, sir, how'd you meet so-and-so? I was like, the internet. I'm like, that's kind of fucking weird. Like, did show up in a van. There wasn't like some catfishing situation. But it's like meeting someone on the internet, and like, I've fucking done it. It's like you unless you know how to extract the person out of it, and it's not just Bridget Jones's Diary, steak, and fucking purple. Like, so tell me about yourself. Like, how is that yourself? That's the most difficult thing, is how do you navigate relationships, whether it's friendships, whether it's, romantic relationships, whatever, when the really only tool to do it is through this faceless medium where you're actually blinded to 90% of the communication that you're actually going to take to get to know someone. And now what are you left with? Well, that 10% is, what's your favorite movie? What's your favorite color? It's like, oh my God, like, give me the good stuff. Like, give me the, what is your tool of calibration? That's what I'd want to know. Yeah. Like, hey, have you ever felt like you were going to die before? Do tell.
Yeah, what's that story? It's probably interesting, right?
Yeah, but dude, I've done that. I've come over the center of the plate with that. I'm not as fucking spurgies as this kid is, but like, that's a yeah. You're thinning the herd real quick
for sure
when you come over the center of the top with that question. When you go right down the center of the plate with like, so your name is this. Don't care about your middle name.
I'll forget.
Have you ever felt like you were going to die before? go. Like, oh, okay, we'll see you later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's strange because it's how would you define getting to know someone?
I don't.
Get out of here. You know more about me than almost anyone in this room. Well, almost anyone on this planet.
Yeah, I do it by not asking questions. I just observe.
Yeah, but what are you, Jane fucking Goodall? Like, am I a chimp to you? Like, what is this?
I don't know. Like, the whole time you guys have been talking, I've been thinking about, like, what questions would I ask? None. I always tell people, like, ask any question you want. They ask, and then I'm like, all right, great, thanks.
Why do we have him on the podcast then? I don't understand. No, dude, you ask questions. Like,
No, I don't know, but I think part of it comes, like, I had a huge argument about this last year, a massive argument about, like, the blind dating thing. And I was like, I'd never go on a blind date.
oh, shit. I remember that.
And it was like...
Is that in California?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It was like, well, what do you mean you wouldn't go on a blind date? I'm like, because I wouldn't be invested in getting to know the other person. And they're like, well, you could get to know them there. I was like, I'm not invested enough to get to that point. They're like, well, how do you invest in people? I'm like, I don't know. I guess it's a slow burn process.
Yeah.
I guess through natural, organic conversation, I get to know people, or I experience things with someone that may lead to a conversation. Some shit might pop off, and I'd be like, dude, 10 years ago, some fucking wild shit happened like this too. I got this. I know exactly what's going to happen next. Or like, I'm glad it went that way because the last time some shit happened like this, didn't go the same way.
Yeah, I get that. Like, to me, you get to know someone by how they treat someone or how they treat people that they that can't do anything for them. So, like, watching people interact in their environment is probably the best way to get to know them.
But I don't think I talked to anybody till I was 15. I was just always quiet. I had like one friend in school, Ryan Langwa. Shout out to Ryan Langwa. He could draw, and he had an N64.
Sick.
Best friend ever.
Parents were really nice. Invited me to his birthday every year. We played road hockey. I was goalie.
Yeah,
I know he could draw. I know he had cats. His parents were nice to me. His dad's name's Gino. We had pizza. I went to his birthday party. I don't know where he is now. I have no clue. Don't care.
But at the time, didn't matter.
No. I remember like my best friend to this day is a guy named Brett Hurd. Shout out Brett Hurd. You should look up at Brett Hurd on Instagram. Incredible photographer. I don't know how we met when I was in grade 9. He was doing a victory lap. And I think he was talking about a movie, or he had brought movies to high school in his backpack. Like he had DVDs.
Nice.
And I was like, can I see those? And I was like, oh, is this director? Is that director? And I was like, yeah. And then we got to know each other because we both like movies. And then we had shared experience from there.
I've definitely become, and I was thinking about this actually at 3:30 this morning. And again, when we kind of did a little ceremony here before the podcast, I was like, I'm quickly turning into, and Florida was a big moment for me in realizing that I'm just turning into like an experience junkie.
Yeah.
That's like, all right, if for me, the ultimate calibration tool is like going under. It's like, we're going to beat the brakes off this thing before it goes underneath. Yeah. And like, I've done shit in the last 3 years I never thought I would do. When I was 25, like, no, I was pretty straight laced, but now it's like experience. Like that to me is how you get to know someone.
But I think that's me. Like, I think I was always just quiet and I just experienced things. But I don't know. Like, I didn't talk to my dad much when I was young. We hardly had any conversations. I think I experienced a lot of stuff with my dad. Sure. Like, I couldn't tell you one conversation I had with my dad when I was young that meant anything. I could probably tell you a million experiences with my dad where we probably said nothing to either of us.
And that to me is the universal sign of like an actual friend. Is like, I don't know how many times we just fucking sat Lundy the same. Like how many times we just fucking sat in the same room and just said nothing. Yeah. It's like if you're in a room with someone and you can't enjoy the experience of just experiencing, if that's like a way to put it, that's like not a friend of mine. Like, fuck, we just sat just bright-eyed this morning on that couch for like 3 hours. And we barely said a word. Chilling. It was like, I think the food's here. That may be like the one thing we said. I was like, that was great. But yeah, I think people, they don't, in like real life, and this is the hard part, is like real life still exists. Yeah. And people don't experience things in real life anymore. Like they're removing that nonverbal point of communication. Everything is like just this visceral spike of this serotonin, dopamine, these stupid reward centers that we kind of talked about. And it's like, you're missing like the in-between moments. Like that is like, that's a good, like you said about your dad. Like my dad's the same. My dad's not like a big talker or anything like that. Yeah. But just like watching him like coming home from work and like working for 30 years, it's like, okay, that taught me more than like sitting down and him going like, well, you know, don't microwave plastic or like whatever the fuck. It's just like, okay, get the fuck out of here. Yeah,
like I've seen my dad break more tools out of frustration than I've seen any man break a tool. Like my dad still uses a plug-in drill.
Yeah, dude, I literally have a plug-in drill in that bag. My old man.
Yeah, you make me sick.
No.
He's got this fucking plug-in drill. The chuck's all stripped. Piece of shit. I've seen my dad break more tools. But, like, in those moments, I don't even know what I learned. But I just know that's my dad. Yeah. And I never needed to be like, oh, man, like do you ever pop off? It's like, I know. I saw him pop off. You know what I mean?
You know what else you don't need to know? Hey, Dad, what's your favorite movie? It
Yeah.
doesn't matter when the fucking DeWalt's going past your head. It's like, oh, shit.
Yeah, it doesn't. And I think it's just like in those moments, right? Like I can imagine like these like snapshots in time, like my dad throwing a hatchet through the garden shed or kicking the fence down. Like he couldn't get the gate open, so he just kicked the door down. Or my dad throwing like the VTech translucent blue phone that was advertised on Hockey Night in Canada, like into the kitchen multiple times when like the operator came on and it like wouldn't put him through to a real human being, right? And maybe it's just a Windsor thing, but it's just like, I don't know. I think I learned a lot as a kid from not wanting to ask my dad questions because he is such a hothead. Where I was like, this isn't a good time to ask anything. To now where I'm in life and I'm like, not going to ask. You'll probably do something and I will answer all. And that's what I always say to people. I'm like, I don't need to ask anything because you will probably answer all the questions I have without saying anything.
Sure.
Right.
And that's, I mean, I've had this conversation so many times last year. It's like, talk is cheap. Like, really, at the end of the day. Like, because you can tell me whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you could literally tell me your favorite movie is Bridget Jones's Diary. And if I turn it on, you tell me to turn it off. It's like,
It's not.
why'd you tell me that?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's, to me, it's always tough to, like, trying to have a basis in reality when so much of the world is okay with just, like, foregoing their life into the internet.
And not only that, too, like so many people, the first thing they go to when you're experiencing something in reality is to view it then through your phone with the fucking camera on. Like,
The irony
What's-
of
what's
this
the-
is not lost on me, by the way.
I
I just
know.
want to
Yeah.
point out, we're looking at mission control here.
shout out.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know. It drives me nuts when you go, like, it's one thing to go to a place, see a thing, and then, oh, I wouldn't mind capturing this or I'll put it on wherever, whatever. Like, I get that. But when you're like, I'm going to go to a place so I can take a picture and do this thing so people know I did it. It's like, to me, that's when intention matters because I don't think you're deriving the same benefits. You know, it's not the same thing.
It's counterfeit,
Yeah.
right? It looks real. Because, like, here's an example. Like, we went to Yosemite. And it's like, yeah, we all just kind of sat there in, like, stunned silence. And after, like, 40 minutes, then we took our cameras out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Where it's like, if you just viewed it through the lens of social media, it was like, you know, the Asian family giving the peace sign that came off the bus with the Mickey Mouse ears on. Like, okay, you're in the wrong part of California. It's like they just got off to take a picture and laugh.
Yeah.
So depending if you're just looking at it through social media, it's like me, Alora, and Killian just had the same experience as this, but we didn't. We just kind of sat there like, oh.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
We drove around to another spot. We went, oh. And we drove around to another spot. Like, oh. And there's other people like, all right, hey, guys, we got to get back to the bus. You know, we got the 3:45 out of Las Vegas. We got to hit the road, get some traffic. It's like, okay. And it's like, I can understand that to a point where it's like, yeah, dude, life is short and I'm in a different city every fucking week. And I feel like I have a hard time looking forward and being present at the same time. Mm-hmm. But every now and then it's like, dude, stop and smell the fucking roses, man. Like,
Yeah.
And that's the tricky part for people is there's such a heightened like sense of urgency that just stems this, like, you know, onto the next.
I find that happens until, specifically in my experiences, health crisis come, right? Because that's the first thing people like, oh shit, like, what was I doing? And it's this huge, like, life-changing thing. It's like, well, first of all, obviously it's scary, it's intense and all this stuff, but like also, why weren't you doing this shit before?
What advice do you give people when they come to you with that kind of stuff? Because I know it's something that people reach out to you often, and like that's like a large part of what you do. Is like when people come to you with health issues, and that's such a broad thing. Like how do you, with your experience, advise people and how to like handle it, or like don't handle it, maybe sit with it or experience it?
Yeah, I think what seems to be unique is I feel excited about bad stuff happening, and that could be a fucked up thing in my psychology, but it's like these are all the person you're going to be a month from now and 6 months from now, like the lessons you're going to learn or have the opportunity to dig into and then have for like your future, like they're indescribable. I can't tell you the difference you're going to feel in, like, I use an analogy that it's like it's a hallway with doors, right? So all of our lives are hallways and we all have our own sets of doors on them, right? But what I find is I have a hard time people with understanding or trying to like comprehend things that I've experienced. I do the same with other people, but my life experiences are mine, and people try to view or think about what my life is like for them, but it doesn't matter, right? It's like, I couldn't do what you did. It's like, one, you don't know that. Two, you're probably right because you don't have my history. And I like, You don't know. So what's the difference? Why are you bothering thinking about it? You have your own hallway. You have your own doors. I don't know what your life is like, but there's this like almost hierarchy of like, my life has been worse than yours. So now I can talk to you about all these things because they'll be less like difficult to you, right? Which is cool. But for me, I'm like, I'm a much, I believe, better person now than 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever. But it's all just, I think, increasing the threshold or recalibrating the tools. And it's like, once you calibrate them more and more times, you become more and more comfortable. It's like, this is exciting because the things that I hope you're going to realize and change in your life are like, your future is very exciting to me. So I don't know. I think I just do.
How is it received though? Like, because I think we talk with this, and it's kind of like the training thing is the skill of acquiring new skills becomes in itself a skill.
Yeah.
Like if you have all the polished tools to put together to make something, and you have to know how to make it, it's like when you know how to make it. Like, you know, a pastry chef is infinitely better suited to be some sort of sous chef somewhere than I am. Why? Because he has a skill set around just learning how to cook shit. Yeah. Right. So if I'm someone who's, you know, coming to you and it's like I still remember, and I still remember getting broken up with for the first time. This was my first real problem, and it's like, it's a bodily function now. It's like, oh, you want to leave? It's like, are you gonna finish that? Like, but it's whether it's breaking up, whether it's quitting a job, whether it's I don't know, moving, whether it's any one of these like major stresses, losing a loved one, losing a pet. It's like it all can kind of just get clumped together. So not only do you get more or better skilled at the actual overcoming the specifics of that situation, you just become better skilled at overcoming situations, period. Right? So there's a compounding effect. But if someone is, and like this is a thing, some people are just going along, minding their own business, life is great, and they just get fucking walloped. Like they get the cancer call out of nowhere. Like, how is that received where you're like, look, in 6 months from now, your hallways, it's going to be amazing. It's like,
I think it's always just breaking it back to finding something you can do. Because I think people are they don't think about like, well, I'm breathing now. And like in a day-to-day life, it's not a great tool to look towards, right? Like for me to say to you, well, just be grateful you're breathing. To me, that sounds fucking stupid. Like, I don't think that that's a fair thing to say. However, if you were to get whatever, have some big thing happen, be like, all right, if breathing is a thing that you get to do today, then fucking breathe on. And then tomorrow, maybe you can try and get out of bed. If you can't get out of bed, are we still breathing? Roll, right? Yeah, and so eventually things will progress, and I think you just have to go back and back and back and digress until you find something, and then do it, and then try to do something else too. And eventually you just, well, I'm still doing it now, right? You find out what you can do. I'm training with you, for fuck's sakes. Like, I don't know what I can do, but I know that you can help me find out. Yeah. And that's recalibration. Like, I don't know, but it's just acknowledging the things that you can't do. And I like one of my favorite sayings that I came up with, but like, there's 1,000 things you can't do. You're going to waste a lot of time trying to think of them all. Just fucking find something you can do it. Gravy. Like, to me, it's pretty fucking simple.
Yeah, I don't know. Is it simple to you because you've recalibrated so many times?
I think probably.
Like, and how do you relay that simplicity to someone who doesn't have the tool to even recalibrate?
Yeah, well,
right, because you have the tool and you can calibrate the tool. It's like you need to construct the tool for people sometimes, because like, again, people they go along and they live a normal life, and all of a sudden it just fucking rains down.
I think it's just reading the room, right? I don't know. People skills is for sure one thing. Having empathy is absolutely something.
You might want empathy.
Right? But I think that sincere empathy and like having it's almost like instant buy-in. If you said something to me and I was like, you know what, Jordan, I know what you're talking about there. If you don't believe me at a core level, whatever I say, you're not going to buy it. It doesn't fucking matter.
Sure.
But if I like you and you say like, dude, I'm struggling, I'd be like, man, me too. Like I've been there. Like, you know that, right? You know I'm fucking being real with you, and people just feel that. And I feel like that is invaluable. And like I don't know anybody that I've never met someone who wouldn't almost instantly perceive that I have experienced things.
So who is the Muscle Bill from Muscle Bill?
Well, in that sense of the word, I don't have one, and that's something that I have trouble with. Like I think that's part of my driver to try and just get out there. It's like I would like to find someone who lives some version of their life that I can be like, okay, you get it, you know. And I don't know anyone.
Because we were running the numbers on like your particular confluence of maladies.
Yeah.
And we're going, there's probably no one else in the world.
I feel quite confident, like even just in a factual way, like I don't know anyone else that takes over 400 pills a week to stay alive.
How long are you doing that for?
3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's a hard part, right? Like I read a book called Hero of the Thousand Faces, and they talk about like Rafiki in Lion King. Yeah. Lion King, right? Yeah. Or like Gandalf. Like there's always that wise sort of like omnipotent, omnipresent person. Like, all right, you reach a milestone or you reach some sort of struggle, and it's the first struggle. Yeah. They've run into some struggle out of the gate. They've agreed to go on the journey. They reach the outer boundaries. Whether it's like Lord of the Rings, when the one fat kid goes, if I take one step further, this is the farthest away from town I've ever left. It's like most of our friends in Windsor when they get to Chatham. Like, let's shut it down. Let's go back. We'll go to Wheels Inn and go home. Yeah. But it's like, and then, Frodo, whatever the fuck, was just like, yeah, all right, well, past the scarecrow, off you get. But then they run into the issue, and then they have this spiritual character comes in. So it's like, I see where you're that for people, but were you also that for you?
I mean, I think so, yeah. Like in a sense, like my dad has always been a huge support for me. Like I spent a lot of time around him. He took me to all my appointments growing up. Like, so as far as a role model goes and like a mindset goes, like he's very much what has to be done, whatever it takes, this is what it takes. And like, I don't know how else you rationalize to a little kid, like, all right, you're going to be cut up right now, and this is what it takes, and then that's what it takes, so you're good. And be like, all right, here we go, right? But how do you do that? But that was my calibration too, It's like, this is what it needs. Even as a kid, I got blood work every 2 weeks, right? I'm 3 years old, whatever. The nurse is like, hold him down. He's gonna move. My dad's like, he's not gonna move. I sit in the chair, I put my arm on the thing. You need to get blood work. He's like, hold him down. He's gonna move. He's not gonna fucking move. Give him the needle. And I sit there and I cry, and the nurse would take my blood, and I wouldn't fucking move an inch. And she'd be like, oh, he's really good at this. He's like, I fucking told you he's fine. Like, he knows it. Like, it has to happen, right? So there's no choice.
That's crazy, man. It's like in Lethal Weapon, the guy holds out the lighter, just has the henchman hold a hand over it, and just like looks him in the eye while his finger's burning.
Yeah.
That's insane.
But like I remember learning to take pills that we talked about this the other day, but like being a little kid, that's like, these got to go down your throat. He fucking in my mouth, held my head up. You got to swallow these. And I learned to take pills pretty quick.
Yeah. I guess if the calibration tool, if you don't take these, you die.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I had to take a antihistamine or something, Louise was sitting there with a Claritin. I'm just like a fucking German shepherd. Like, no. And I could get it behind my tongue. And she's like, is it gone? And I spit it on the floor. She's like, go ahead, you hay fever motherfucker. Just go.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, as far as the Gandalf figure goes, though, like I don't know anyone else. And that is kind of I don't know if difficult's the right word, but it's a thing for sure. So I think I am always hoping that I do find someone sometime that'd be like, all right, you get it. You not necessarily the same things, but like whatever. Everybody, and I don't want to say there's different aspects of life that are difficult. I've had many aspects of my life be quite privileged and awesome, right? Like, just this is a one area of my life that I don't know anyone else. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's tough because it's the one area that kind of matters the most. When all the checks are paid, it's like, I'm not a great cook.
Right.
I don't know anyone who's as bad a cook as me. Like, I burn rice. I eat fucking.
You're sitting with Killian, huh?
I eat 40 pounds of rice. Yeah, but he's bougie. He's getting his shit fucking cooked for him. Where it's like, there's zero consequence to me being bad at cooking. I don't know anyone as bad at cooking as me. But it's like, I'm not so bad at cooking that I might die.
Mm. Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely, I think more of it is, it takes a lot of energy to stay alive. And I think a lot of people don't have to be so conscientious of that. Like, so it's difficult for me to try and communicate to other people, like, look, I'm tired today and I just need a down day. Versus it's like, we'll just power through it, sleep an extra hour tomorrow and you're fine. It's like, we're not playing the same ball game here. Like, you don't. So then for me, it's like a lack of understanding. It's like, all right, do I then try to communicate to you so that you do understand to a level, or try to, or just not fucking bother, right? Because I'm already tired.
Where do you land?
How do you mean?
Like, where do you land on that conversation? Like, I get frustrated as fuck. You heard me on the phone with the internet guy. I hate excuses. I hate it. Like, if I have to put myself first, I'll wake up at 3:30 before anyone else is awake, and I'll just do that then.
Yeah.
So it's like, if I were you, and this is like, I guess, part and parcel of the whole conversation we're having, is I would be so frustrated with literally any excuse. It's like, you stood up to let me in because I forgot my key. And as you let me in, you're like, whoa, and you T-bowed because you're like, well, I got up too fast. You good? It's like, yeah, I'm gonna be down here for a bit. And it's like, oh, okay. I guess that's a thing that I can now recalibrate for. Like, I don't too often get up and think that I'm gonna have to stay here for a bit.
Yeah.
So if people ever tell you the words I can't, dude, I personally, without any pre-existing health issues from the day I was born, when I hear people say that, I just want to fucking grab them by their trachea and I want to pin them to a wall.
I'll tell you that'll add a lot of stress to your life.
Oh yeah, no, look at my face. My blood pressure's through the roof.
You know what I mean?
Because I deal with bullshit excuses all fucking day.
Yeah, right. But I think for me, then it's just a matter of trying to, I don't know, compassion, but it's just like, understand that if they don't understand, like, we don't know what we don't know. And so I don't expect other people to know, because then I'm setting myself up for failure, right? I'm setting myself up for frustration if I expect other people to know. Because how the fuck would they?
I mean, you're a monk at that point. I just
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's I spend a lot of time alone in my living room with the lights off. It's quiet. I don't know. I do sit with myself a lot, for sure.
I don't know. It's like we got the guy who cares, the guy who cares too much, and then me. I don't even care at all.
Yeah,
It's great.
It's like the see no evil, hear no evil, wear stupid shoes, man.
Yeah.
Whatever the fuck. Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to look outside yourself, and I guess that's what makes you an admirable person to talk to, is because you exhibit such qualities that he can't even fathom, or even register. So he's gonna go get his coffees here in a second.
It'd be amazing,
and that would be. And I can't imagine not just losing my shit.
Yeah,
like because for me, and I know you're the same, is you have such expectations of yourself.
Yes.
Wrong?
Correct.
No. Okay. Like, I know at least that much about you, that I'm personally offended when people don't at least hold themselves to a standard. I don't even fuck what the standard is. Like, I have a friend, she's always 20 minutes late. Always. And it's like, that's so fine. She's always 20 minutes late. I set my watch to it. Steph, she's always fucking 20 minutes late. Venezuelan Standard Time. It's just a thing. And she never doesn't not show up. She's just 20 minits late. That's her standard. She's set to that standard. But when people just don't even set the fucking standard and there's no consistency, it's like, I sit there as a bizarro world, this kid, and I just rip my hair out. And you're sitting there like, I can't. I can't do it.
My blood pressure's got enough issues, man.
Wow. That again, that's a tool of calibration.
It's like, well, you saw me, right? Like, I don't know, standing up, my legs go numb sometimes. Sometimes my eyes go funny. Like, I can't see right. I got to bend over. I got to get back down to the ground.
You got to get the head below the heart.
Yeah, well, just it's less distance to fall. But yeah, I don't know. It's definitely an odd thing. There's a lot of time and contemplation and a lot of time of just trying to assess what's going on in my head, I think. So for me to convey that to other people is not easy, and so oftentimes I choose not to. Like, when shit hits the fan with me, or when things get kind of heavy, like this last year, I've been waiting to see a surgeon for 13 months. I don't talk to a lot of people over that time, typically. Like, I don't invite people in. I don't want to just be like, because it's very draining. People ask questions, how you feeling, whatever. And then it's like, well, now you're stressed because I told you about my life.
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep it to myself. Because you can't understand anyway. So what's the fucking point?
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
Right? And I'm not saying that's a great way to go, but it's what I do. It's my default. It's like, all right, I'll tell you whenever you need to know, which is probably fucking never. And like but yeah, and even my parents, I'll be like, when things happen, I'll be like, I'll wait until I have the information. So whatever that timeline is, but I just sit within myself. I don't know.
What advice do you give to people who, like, I mean, knowing a large population that you work with comes to you with some sort of health issue.
Right.
What advice do you give to people who don't have, like, pre-existing health shit, that are just like, I don't know, to their own accord broken?
I think it would just require more context, because it's always about finding something you can do. If you have a problem, typically you want to do something about it. Otherwise, I wouldn't know you have a problem. Right. So what are you having trouble finding a solution with? Like, what's the step you're missing?
So is it the same regardless?
Yeah, it's just connecting dots, man. Like, how do you connect the dot for somebody so that they can do it for themselves? I don't know, but it comes in the conversation.
I always feel bad talking to Bill because it's just like I feel like everything is directed right at me.
I don't know. I think it's this thing where, like, obviously Bill's life is Bill's life, and he has way more problems than I've ever had. But it's like you,
not even. Like,
but you empathize with those. Like, you have a level of empathy I think you're not aware of, because it's like you're calibrating to that. You're like, well, Bill had to take a knee, so it's like now my problems aren't as bad.
Right.
I don't think that. I go, Bill has to take a knee because he's Bill.
Which I appreciate.
Bill, you're gonna need to get the fuck out of the way, man. I gotta get through the door.
Great.
But it's just like, but for me, it's just like, yeah, man.
It is what it is, right?
But like, I grew up with my dad. Like, my dad got crushed between two cars on the line at Windsor. He was doing quality control, and they advanced the line and crushed him between two cars. Broke his back, had to fuse a bunch of vertebrae, did it wrong, left the drain in his back, had to go back to the hospital to cut the drain out. And my dad had spasms and seizures for like a decade.
Yeah.
Couldn't stand, couldn't sit, couldn't do anything. And like, my dad's from Windsor, fucking tough dude, beat the shit out of guys. Here's my dad, and he crumbles, man. Can't even get up out of a chair. He's like passed out on the ground. Mm-hmm. So I think I just seeing that every other day from when I was 7 to when I graduated high school, I was just kind of like, yeah, all right, well, that's what. And my dad, we lived in an apartment building, not the greatest apartment building. We lived in an apartment building, and we'd be waiting for the elevator. My dad'd have a seizure, and he'd just be laying on the ground. People would come out, and they'd be like, "Oh my God, like your dad." I'm like, "It's cool, he'll get up." And they're like, "Do we need to call? Like, do we need help?" I'm like, "He's gonna get up." And I'm just standing there like 11 years old. I'm like, "He'll get up." And I even remember, like, my dad, the first few times, I was like, what do I need to do? And he's like, I'll be fine. I'll get up soon. I was like, all right. I'll just go back to doing what I was doing. Mm-hmm. Like, it loses its effect.
Yeah, I guess.
And
that's definitely
a unique experience, I guess, right? So for me, when I see, like, people who have stuff, I'm just like, yeah, man.
Yeah.
All right.
And that's where I'm at on the other side. It's like everybody's got stuff. Just some people perceive my stuff to be harder for some reason, you know?
And it's not like I don't care. Like, I would stop and help an old lady across the road. I would fucking,
you're right.
You know what I mean? If a person was vision impaired asked for my assistance, I would assist them.
Yeah.
But I don't look at people and immediately go, oh, fuck. Like, my day was terrible, but then this guy, now my day's not so bad. It's like, no way, man. My day fucking sucks. Like, I'm raging. I don't care. Like,
and don't assume that they need your help.
I never do. I always remember as a kid, there was this fucking guy who had no legs who lived in my condo. And he'd wheel himself all the way to the mall and wheel himself back. I never once held the door for that motherfucker. You press the button. You're golden enough. You're an adult. Press the button. Fuck you. I'd walk right by him every time. I never held the door. Fuck that guy.
Did he ever ask you to?
No.
Probably never wanted to do.
He had one giant dread. Looked like a beaver tail.
The help you need, he couldn't provide.
And that's the thing.
What would it take to shake you?
Very little.
No. I think it would be the opposite. Like, shake you, I'm like just getting on clearer terms of what I mean by shake you. Like there are things that I'll see that will recalibrate, where it's like you're impervious to that recalibration, where you see something difficult and you're like Seinfeld, like that looks real hard.
Yeah,
that's unfortunate. Yeah. What would it take to just break that? Not break it permanently, but for you to be like, oh shit, okay.
I don't know. I'm just being honest. Like
because that's the thing.
I really don't know,
especially with something like that severe for that long, that level of graded exposure for someone who is such like evolutionarily such an influential person on you, like your father especially too as a son, like as a male. Yeah. Like to see that it's like, oh, okay, like the God King bleeds sort of thing. Like, all right, I get that. So I'm just really curious to see, and I obviously hope it never happens, but like it'd be interesting to know what that would be. Oh, dude, Killian as a father. Could you imagine that? You as a dad? No?
I don't know.
Dude, I think you'd be a puddle.
Maybe.
I think so.
That's something I don't know. I've never had a kid I know about. So like,
well, yeah, if any estranged women are listening to this, that's probably going to stay that way.
Yeah, we'll keep it that way.
They're a psychopath. But hasn't cracked a smile in 2 hours.
No, but I think that's what it is. Like maybe that's what it would be, but I don't know anything else. Like we've all seen crazy stuff, right? I remember driving to Windsor from Toronto for Christmas, and this semi truck cuts this car off beside us. Yep. And this car veers in front of us, hits the fucking median, and then rolls like end over end. Demoed it. And my dad just calmly pulls the car to the side of the road and gets out and just walks right into the middle of 401 South. And he's just like yanking on the door. And he's like, fuck it. He just boots the window in. And this other dude comes over and they just drag this lady out. She's all fucked. There's gasoline everywhere. And they just drag her like to a dry spot on the highway. And my dad doesn't have a cell phone. And he's like, hey man, do you have like a phone? And the guy's like, yeah. He's like, all right, call 911. My dad walks back to the car, gets in, we drove away. We never talked about it again.
That's incredible. That's gonna, you know what? Someone's gonna monetize that and turn it into like some sort of exposure therapy camp.
And I just remember
like
like
weekend at the Hamiltons or something.
And I think it wasn't the reaction of seeing that happen to somebody, but it was the reaction of my dad never making it a big deal and never ever speaking about it again.
Yeah.
And we have never talked about it. That happened probably 20 years ago. And like my dad dragged the lady out of a car in the middle of the highway and got back in, and we got back. I think 10 minutes later, he was like, I fucking hate the traffic on the 401
Fucking
South.
401, yeah.
Yeah. And that was the conversation for the rest, was how bad every other driver was. The 401 sucked.
I think when I was growing up too, because I was in the hospital once a week for my treatment, I saw other people with things much more severe than mine all the time, right? So it was like I get to go to the hospital once a week, and then I get to go home, and it's not that big a deal. Like I still went to school 4 days a week, you know. So I guess I missed 20% of school my whole life, but like I got to go home, go to school, do my regular shit, and then go once a week. It's all good. But some people, like, they never leave.
I think the other thing too, though, is meeting people like Bill and like, you know, situations I've had or, you know, like I've seen or talked to people about, or like Yordi's life story's crazy.
Sure.
But like people's story that sounds like a movie, to me, desensitizes me to the romance of struggle. Because I just go, it's not a movie. It's regular everyday life.
Right.
Like everyone's got a crazy story and they all just fucking exist until you ask them. So it's like none of it's surprising to me. Whereas people never encounter people. So like they see a movie or a TV show and they're like, fuck, oh my God, imagine. Yeah. And imagine this happened. It's like, fuck, imagine it did. Yeah. And then that fucking dude bags groceries. Like who the fuck cares? Yeah. Yeah. It's just regular life and like shit happens.
Yeah.
So it's never like, oh, these guys, they champion the human race with their struggle. It's like, I don't know. They just fucking, it's just every day.
Right. No, I totally agree with that.
Yeah. No, I'm on board with that whole thing. And I think the antidote to it is just spending the time being present and actually getting to know people through experience. Right? Like, I've said it 10,000 times, but that thing in the Joker where it's like, I've killed 5 of your friends. Do you want to know which one of everyone's cowards? Like, that's a hell of an experience. People are going to show you their best when they're at their worst, or whatever their version of their best is when they're at their worst. So, but people just don't take the fucking time anymore.
I don't think people take the time to realize no matter the struggle, people can be an asshole.
No.
Like, dude, single dread beaver tail wheelchair guy was a terrible person in my apartment building. Everyone hated him. He's so rude all the time.
Right.
And I was like, all right, so some dude with no legs in a wheelchair can be an asshole.
Yeah.
Like, he's not championing this cause.
Right.
You know, he's not Sean Penn and I Am Sam making the Frappuccino. Like, everyone can be a dick.
There's an extra layer of humor with you making that show.
And it's like, sorry. But yeah.
Oh man.
I don't know. Like, I think that's what I look at. It's like Coen Brothers movies. The Coen Brothers make movies where everyone is inherently evil, not inherently good. And that's where I look at things. I'm like, and this was my mom. Like, my mom worked with kids with like severe special needs. My entire life, that was her job for 25 years. Like special needs, like low functioning, like high needs kids, quadriplegic, in wheelchairs, everything. And she'd be like, guess what? They can all be rude. They can all be bad people.
Yeah.
No physical malady, disability, disadvantage makes anybody better. Yeah. It's
I
not
would also
Forrest
say
Gump.
They could all be also good people too.
Sure, but
right?
everyone
but
assumes
in the same
that,
equal distribution that
anybody is, because people assume it. You see some fucking blind guy and you're like, oh, it's the blind guy.
See, I don't do that
it's like,
though.
No, he's probably some creep.
With like fat people being funny. It's like, I know plenty of fat people, not funny.
Yeah.
It's just, people are just people. They're equally, they're
equally good and bad. I only see people are bad. until they prove otherwise.
Fair enough.
So for me, it's like I don't ever side with anyone's story because I'm like, fuck you. Maybe you're a piece of shit.
Yeah. Let's see what, like, when things get thrown down, let's see who you are.
Well, this is where you go back to the actions over words, right?
Sure.
Like, you can tell me anything you want to do. Oh, I'm this great guy. I fucking donate to this and that. But if you don't hold the door for me, or that, more importantly, the older lady behind me, like, fuck you.
Yeah. No, I get that. And that's the one thing I like since we had you on the podcast, fuck, man. A year ago, a year ago, would have been December, I think. And how many keep going, you're doing great cards have circulated the world? Because that's actionable.
That's
amazing. Because it's not a word anymore, right? It's not verbal. It's like there's literally across the fucking globe. I don't know. You tell me how many you've mailed out.
Yeah, it's been a couple hundred anyway. I made a map. I'm
you?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to post it up. So I have it up, all the different states and countries and stuff. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. So because that to me is like, I showed you mine. Like mine,
man.
mine might be the most well traveled.
I'd like to acknowledge that too. Like, I appreciate that. I pulled that onto my wallet because when I left from the last time I was down to stay at the Airbnb, that's the only one I had on me. It was my own in my wallet. Yeah. So I left it on the counter or whatever, and then here we are this time later. It's all fucking
four laps of the globe. Now I got a new one, but because it's tangible, right? And that's what I like about that is it's a gesture now. It's not just lip service, right? So like the keep going, you're doing great cards, the muscle build. And
it's like, I think for me, I found like I've been able to or found utility in actually speaking to myself over the years, right? Like, so I know whatever I need, I just provide it to myself. I need to hear something, I say it. Yeah. That card point in hand. But like, I find a lot of people like that to me, that's a beneficial thing to read. Most people aren't going to write it down for themselves, right? And so for me, at least from my own perception, it's like if I can offer this advice or this little card from my perspective and my experience, it seems like it holds a little bit of weight because people know where it's coming from. Right. And then when they apply it to themselves, they don't have to write it themselves because I fucking wrote it for you. Hey, just remember that, you know?
I think the cool thing with that is you not only wrote it for like everyone who needs to read it, but you're also one of those people that needed to read it.
Totally, dude. Right? One time specifically, it was a Saturday morning. I got up at 6 o'clock and I wrote down 50 cards, and it was just by process of that morning. It wasn't what I intended to do that day, but I was like, fuck, man. Like, I was all energized over a conversation I had. I'm like, this is what it's all about for me. Like, that's awesome. So it's being able to send those down to other people. It means the world to me, right? It's very cool. It's very unexpected, and I don't know. It's neat.
The new website's up.
Yes, sir.
Musclebuild.com.
Musclebuild.com. I got it running.
Keep going. You're doing great. Those cards.
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mailing them out.
So onto the website, musclebuild.com. Instagram.
Musclebuild. Yeah.
Musclebuild. Easy days.
I'm easy to find. Yeah.
Yeah. You just go to Teeswater. Like, hey, have you seen Bill?
You seen that?
He was just here.
You got that yellow car around? Like, yeah, that's me.
Yeah, that's got to be the only one in Teeswater.
Dude, oh yeah. Yeah.
Like the only car in Teeswater.
Yeah.
I don't know where you're you on the internet.
Yeah.
I don't talk to him. He doesn't want you. Just fuck off. Get off his lawn.
Don't ask him any questions.
Killian Hamilton, Kyle Lundy on the ones and twos, making it happen. We got to get you your mic back. We'll figure it out one day. All right, guys.
Yeah.
So that's it for this episode, dude. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you coming on always, man.